Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In. We are brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. Like my good friend and co-host Mark Ostrander is wearing, and myself, Grant Turner, as I'm sure most of you guys know, is on assignment, actually in Serbia. So, Marco, good to see you, brother. How are you?
Good. A lot of stuff going on. So
probably the highlight of the week is you and I are playing each other in fantasy football this weekend. So we'll just talk about that for 45 minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
there you go. We all, both my sons, myself, and you all lost week number one. So what does that tell us?
Yeah. I lost
Not a good weekend. Not a good week.
I lost to a college freshman. So there you go. Anyway, a couple just front end things, and then the rest of the pod will be about Worlds. But want to thank Greater Heights Wrestling Club. I had to go into Kansas City on Tuesday, pick up some stuff for Border Brawl, which we'll talk about next week. It's on the 24th, and we're recording this on the 15th. But Greater Heights had me in, did a little coaching, a little teaching, and worked alongside Alan Waters from Mizzou. Awesome. I shouldn't call him a kid. He's a grown man now, but awesome guy. 4-time state champ, Fargo champ, D1 All-American, wrestled Joe Colon one year in our event. Somebody I've known for a long time, really good human being. Did a great job teaching. And Greater Heights is a kids club that's won state like 18 years in a row or something like that. So it was cool to be in the room. Want to thank Jason Keck and Omar Padilla and those guys for having us in. Second thing, I recorded Matt Chat yesterday, Mark, and all joking aside, we talk about how important family is, how close I am with my parents. Your sons, got a chance to hang out with your family this summer. Got a chance to interview Brandon Paulson and his father, Doug, at the same time yesterday. Cool. Talk about what Pinnacle's doing, talking about what clubs like Pinnacle are doing, influencing how well things are going in general. At the USA Wrestling level, the kids clubs, all that kind of stuff. And then also just about the growth of Greco, how things have changed. It's just really fun podcast. And, they're a lot like you and Ben or you and Thomas, where they love each other, but they tease each other pretty good. So it was a fun one to watch. And the third thing is the NWCA All-Star Meet is coming back. I think it's November 22nd.
Saw that.
We got plenty of time to talk about that, but just wanted to congratulate the NWCA and Flow Wrestling. I'm guessing Mike Moyer and Matt Bowlesby had a lot to do with that. I continue to be impressed by Matt. I know we had him on Weighing In about a month ago, and really a smart guy that sees the big picture in a very intellectual way. So that's always been a cool meet. They got at least, I'd say several matches, but the Starachi, Makai Lewis, you get a national finals rematch. That's a way to put a headliner together. So comments on any of that stuff before we jump into Worlds?
No, it's great what they're doing up in Minnesota. I think anybody that runs a club right now they're doing phenomenal work. Our young kids are coming into college, and with so much talent these days, it's just fun to watch. It's fun to see where the sport's going with pure talent, because it's going to get to a point, David, I predict that you're going to get to a national tournament and you're going to have 7 or 8 guys that each year that you're not sure who's going to win that weight. So that's just how much talent's out there right now. You watched, I don't think we talked about who's number one, but you watched a couple of those weights. 160, they had a 4-man bracket. All 4 of these kids are really, really talented. And
yeah,
Ferrari came out and won it, but he beat a world champion to win it. Who's Seeley, who's a stud, who beat the number 2 ranked kid in the country out of California, a drum. These guys are gifted, and that's just one weight bracket. So, these kids clubs, Paulson up in Minnesota, it's really important that these young kids have a place to go to keep maturing at this sport. And I think we're seeing kids not doing all these 3-4 sport athletes. When I was in high school, I played 4 different varsity sports. So wrestling was a 3-month thing, and then I was done with it. I didn't do year long. So it's kind of nice to see these guys really push themselves and advance the sport of wrestling. That's what I'm trying to get to.
You're 100% right about all that. And I'm sure it's always better when we disagree. It's more interesting. But shout out to Who's Number One. I actually talked to Bowlesby Tuesday, told him how good I thought it looked. Actually talked to Tom Keene. So congratulations. It was a Cliff Keene arena, Cliff Keene uniforms. So congratulations to those guys. Tom Keene's working with us on the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dual Meet Classic, which we'll announce here shortly. Some great matches. Selfishly, I think we had 4 kids that were in that event that had wrestled in Border Brawl. So including Ferrari, who won a 4-man bracket there. But Ladarian Lockett and 2 young ladies on the women's side were all in our event. So selfishly, it's like, hey, if you want to see kind of the superstars of tomorrow, come check out Border Brawl. So, but they did a great job with the production. It was at Ann Arbor, and next year it's going to be in Tempe at Arizona State. So
that'd be nice.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get into the Worlds. I just wrote a note of something I thought of that for us to touch base on. But so we are recording this at 9:10 Central Time, September 15th. So the day we're recording this is the last day of women's freestyle and the first day of men's freestyle has started. And we're probably like on the break right now. So we're going to go back through and summarize Greco and summarize freestyle and kind of preview what we think is going to happen in men's freestyle. We'll go through the brackets and those kind of things. So let me share screen here. So the first thing I want to talk about is the women's race, team race. So this was an article put out yesterday by John Kozak over at Flow. And for people that don't remember, we've got the team points. It's 25-20, all that kind of stuff on down the line. So here was the current top 10 when he printed this. A couple things. One, if you read the article, basically the United States would have to win every match and Japan would have to lose every match for United States to win. So realistically, the United States is going to take second, which is amazing. 7 medals again, which is really amazing. I'm a math dork, Mark, and I opened this up, and Japan and United States have 320 points. If you look at the next teams combined, 2 through 10, the first 10th place team have 300 points, less than 320 combined.
Yeah.
So it's unbelievable how top heavy this is. And it feels like when we would do rankings, a lot of what we would do were tiers, in Division I men's rankings. It feels like Japan is on a tier. United States is sort of 1B, close to that tier, but haven't caught them yet. And then the rest of the world is in tier C, tier 3. So, because if you look at that, 58 to 29, if Poland had one more champion or Turkey had one more champion, they'd be at 54. So any thoughts on just that perspective before we get into the individual results?
Well, I think, the United States has done a phenomenal job with our women's program. Obviously, we've talked about this quite a bit. What will it take to catch Japan? I don't know. They're just that dominant, especially in the lower weights, which is, I think we can compete with Japan in the upper weights without a doubt. I think we're better. But the lower weights, they're just so good. And we're only seeing the best of their best, but I think their second best is probably as good as what, the United States has in the lower weights, maybe even their third best. There was a sitcom that went through first, second, third best. But anyway, I think we've made huge strides, but I think we still have a ways to go if we want to catch Japan, because they put a lot of resources into this.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things here. First of all, we do want to catch Japan, right? I mean, like that's USA Wrestling's goal is to be the best wrestling country in the world. So the second thing is culturally, there's just Japanese society. There's more smaller people. Just so you're right that like if America can develop some upper weight women that are going to win, place first, second, third, and outscore them there, and then if we can take second or third and have a Helen, have a Dom Parrish, which I can't wait to talk about, get in and get a gold medal. That's realistically is probably the clearest path to doing so. So
Correct.
Anyway, so we're going to go through the brackets here. I think I'm about to say something somewhat controversial. We're just going to go through them in weight order, even though they weren't wrestled in weight order. So Sarah Hildebrandt was the number one ranked or number one seed. She went 10-0, 11-0, lost a tough match, 6-2 to the Mongolian in the semi. The Mongolian got pinned by Sasaki from Japan in the finals. Hildebrandt wins 10-0, I think it was. Let me double check here for third. Yeah, 10-0. So in that match, she got choked out in a front headlock, and clearly that shouldn't, you don't want that to happen. They gave the other girl points. They took the points off the board. She technically would have been pinned because she was unconscious, but the referees figured it out. She was kind of tapping on the way over. And this is not anything to do with Sarah Hildebrandt. This has to do with just life in general. Getting choked out is not as bad as some people think it is. Like, it's obviously not great, but there's really no long-term damage. If you've ever done jiu-jitsu or anything like that, it's part of it. And my dad, who's an 8th degree black belt, told me, he's like, look, if you're fighting and trying to win a tournament, you should definitely submit to like joint locks, arm bars, things like that, where, you could pull ligaments, that kind of stuff. But a choke is something you just go out for a couple minutes and you come back. The first time I got choked out was when I was coaching at Merrimack, and you'll probably laugh at this. I was out. I have no idea how long I was out. And the whole time in my head, I was making recruiting calls and phones were ringing all behind me. Like other people were coming in, and I woke up, and the guy that had choked me out was like 60 pounds bigger than me. And him and the coach go, man, he's a tough little sucker. He wouldn't tap out. So I got put in what's called a clock choke. So I didn't even know it was coming at the time. It's a gi choke where when you circle a certain direction, you actually tighten it on yourself. And, but anyway, so I don't think people need to be overly concerned about that. It is a big deal to come back and wrestle really well after that, because it takes a while to clear the cobwebs, but she'll have no long-term damage. She wrestled fantastic, except in the match that she lost. She's clearly one of the 4 best women in the world on a consistent basis.
Yep.
And, did a great job. So if we go to 53. So to me, this is the story of the tournament so far. Parrish goes, she got a bye, then goes 10-0, 10-0, 3-1, 4-2, Mark, wins the tournament. First senior world team.
Yep.
And this is probably a good point to talk about Sunkist. So Sunkist has Kayla, Helen, Dom, the Blade sisters, Forrest Molinari. That's just who I can think of. Okay. Yep. So they have, like, people are talking about how like Nittany Lion could put a whole squad together, like a 10-man team. They're pretty close. I'm not sure they had one point, they had Vicky Anthony, who could make 50, who was a clearly top 4 person in America for sure, top 10 in the world. So they're going to come back. Dom won, Kayla's second, Helen's in the finals, hadn't been scored on. Forrest was a Final X runner-up to Velty, who tech-falled for third.
Yep.
The Blade sisters are knocking on the door. I mean, Sunkist probably took third at the Worlds in women's wrestling. Actually, like they pretty much did. Because you look at what they got, just with the people we've talked about, right?
Yeah.
So huge shout to Mark Perry, huge shout to Lee Pritz. Those guys were out there, but also the Frank Molinaros, the Zeke Joneses, obviously the Art Martoris of the world, all the people that are supporting those young ladies. But to go back, what do you think of Parrish's run? I was actually driving home from Kansas City and pulled over on the side, like at a gas station to watch that match. And I got a little emotional just because I had interviewed her at Coralville, and this is her first run at it. I think, she's surrounded by alphas and, in the room, and to step up and do that was freaking awesome.
Well, I think just being surrounded by the alphas in the room, David, like you're talking about with Arizona State, Sunkist kids, it just makes you that much better. And obviously, most of these women that are in this type of tournament, David, are really, really talented. They're world class. But when you're in a room with all world class athletes, it's just in your head. You belong there. And this being her first senior tournament, I mean, she went out there like, this is just like practice. I have better people in the room, practicing with than I'm wrestling out here. And that's just the mentality that I would assume she went in there with. So, kudos to her. I mean, it was phenomenal. You're right. She's probably the talk of the tournament right now.
Yeah, at least from the American point of view, I would say, with more stories coming, obviously. But the other thing about her is she's just a super likable person. Like, kind of wears her heart and emotions on her sleeve, just, humble. The one sentence you said in there, which I don't disagree with, but I think we need to give her credit, is when you train in a room of killers, not everybody gets better. Some people quit. Or they just go, I'm not that good, and they just become a practice partner. So theoretically, that's how it works, right? Like a rising tide lifts all ships kind of thing, right? But it doesn't always work that way. Like when Grant Turner's on this podcast, like we have to step up our level of international wrestling, right? Like, when I talk to you about coaching, I need to step my level up. But there's some people who just go, I can't hang with that level. So I think she probably, I'm going to try to get her on Mat Chat, in the next week or two. Would like to get her maybe with Mark and Lee and, Kayla and I can't decide if I want them all together or just talk to her, but, or how to do that, maybe her and Helen. But there has to be moments of doubt where, because if you've never done this stuff, and Helen's won everything in the freaking world and won it in the most crazy way, she was the story of the Olympics in a lot of ways, beat a legend. So, congratulations to Dom, just unbelievable performance. So 55, Winchester. So she just feels like she's snake bit right now. I mean, she lost in the semis to Japan 12-0, but then she's winning, I think it was 12-4, because the final score was 12-6 before she got pinned, I believe. Yeah, she was winning 12-4 and was trying to gut her out to get, to finish the match, and got stepped over and stuck. So she's clearly knocking on the door there. 55 feels like the right weight for her. So, I mean, again, like, you're good when you take fifth in the world and it's disappointing, right?
Yep.
So 57, I think it's almost, I think when I say, Dom Parrish is the story of the tournament, it's almost just, I'm accepting greatness as it is. Like Helen Marula, 16 seconds, pin, 10-0 in the quarters, pin in the semis. She's in the finals versus Sakurai, which will happen later on today. It's, obviously she would be one of the stories next week, but she's gotten so good. I shouldn't say but like, I'm almost taking it for granted that she's going to win a world title, but she seems to be doing it with a lot of joy, like a lot of happiness, a lot of high energy. She's clearly a leader on that team, especially with Adeline having had a baby and not competing this year. Like, her, Immensa Stock, the people that have done it at the highest level are the people you look up to, right?
Yes.
So
yeah, she's unbelievable. I think the other women on the team do look up to her because she's went through the gauntlet. As you said, she's done it in so many different ways. She finds ways to win. I would be shocked if she didn't win this tournament, but I mean, this is world-class competition. If she doesn't win it, it's not going to be a failure. I mean, look what she's done all the way through. So
it's the ultimate compliment you gave her is, I'd be shocked if she doesn't win the tournament, right? Like,
yeah,
we talk about people like, hey, man, I'll be shocked if so-and-so doesn't win the state tournament, right? Or the district tournament. We're talking about the world championships. Like,
yeah, you're right.
This is, and that's the ultimate compliment you can give anybody is that expectation of excellence. So 59, we go to the results here. I'll go back here. So 59, this was Nettie's weight, I believe. So Nettie ended up 10th. If you go to consolations, she ended up in 10th place. So she lost in the first repechage match here to the Mongolian, and then the Mongolian will wrestle the Pole for third and, for the third or fifth. So she ended up 10th, which is figured out on good points. So, obviously placing is great, not what she wanted, but, she'll continue to move forward. Kayla so the Kayla Miracle situation is interesting to me because she goes 17-6, 6-1, 3. She's losing and then got the pin and lost to Ozaki in the finals, got takedown laced twice, takedown, and then got caught on a chest trying to do a head pinch to get teched out. I think we should talk about the depth, like you mentioned the depth in Japan, right? Like at a lot of these weights, Kayla Miracle, let's start out with silver medalist, amazing job. Lost the first match of the special final X.
Yep.
And had to come back to win the second match and was losing the third match with like 90 seconds left, maybe 60 seconds. I can't remember exactly when. And Jennifer Rogers Page made a tactical error and kind of gave up 5 when she really only needed to give up 1 or 2. And if I remember correctly, if she gave up 2, she still would have been winning or else, losing on tied, on tiebreaker. Kind of took herself out of the match. So that bodes well for America in terms of depth. But it also, Kayla, another silver medal. She's fun to watch. She's got really good level changes. Ozaki's just kind of next level, huh?
Huh? Did you say huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say huh too. Yeah. There's a big little gap there.
My mom would punish me for saying on.
Yeah, but let's give Kayla all the props in the world. She came back from an injury. She hadn't wrestled for a while. She went into, they delayed the final X for her. You could tell that she was a little rusty, and she got it out of victory. And then she goes to the Worlds, and she's probably still not 110%, David. And that's what you want to be when you go to a tournament like this. So I'd say she's probably right around 90, 85%, and was able to go out and get in the finals of a world tournament. That's pretty impressive.
Yep. The one thing we should be pointing out as we go is any of these young ladies that finished first, second, or third are now in final X for next year.
Yes.
Okay. For the 23 team. And then it gets really interesting because if you can go place at 23, you're either in final X for the Olympic year or semi, depending on if you're an Olympic or a non-Olympic weight. There's a couple rumors floating around out there. One tied to this, one not, but we'll just bring it up. One is that there's going to be less steps next year. I'm hearing that it might just be U.S. Open and Final X, that there might not be World Team Trials, and there might not be 2 Final X's, just 1 Final X. Okay. I talked to Alan Waters about that Tuesday night, and he's like, I think the athletes would like it. You got to make weight less times. You got to travel around less time. You can train more. It also would make the U.S. Open absolutely unbelievable because everybody has to go. So instead of it feeling kind of watered down as you go along the way. So I don't know if that's going to happen for sure, but I've heard from fairly reliable sources that might be the case. And then the other thing, which I think just makes sense, is as women's wrestling comes out of emerging status and becomes an established sport at the NCAA level, due to just mat time and space, facility stuff, it feels like one either men's or women's will become a fall sport and the other one will become spring sport. And then they'll both be 1 semester sports. Yeah. Now that'll be interesting because whichever one is the spring sport will have some overlap with like the US Open and stuff like that. So I think they would probably try to get the season done. I think before, the NCAA is at least like the weekend before the US Open. But, like if you go in April, there's not a lot going on, right? Like college basketball's done. They're done the first Monday of April.
Yep.
And, if you did your regionals, Big 12s, 10s, et cetera, that weekend, you'd have it all to yourself. And then you'd have a 2-week buildup. And then I think the networks and everything would probably put more time and effort into it, which is how you grow the sport. So just some things to talk about there. Okay, 65. So Velty actually wrestled, in her loss, she wrestled really well. Lost to Morikawa. Morikawa is interesting. She wins a lot of matches close. Like if you look at her results, she won 2-0, 3-0, 2-0. So, but then Velty gets pulled through, but she had to go the long way, but ends up taking third. I guess she won 11-2. I thought she tech falled out, but she didn't. So she ends up 11-2 third, and that's the weight that she beat Forrest. So, she's now sitting at Final X next year. So 68. Mensa Stock. So she was the 2 seed. She goes 10-0, 10-0, 10-0. She's got Japan in the final, shocking, and has looked just amazing. If you watch her running through people, she's just doing a great job. So I love her style, Mark. I don't know about you.
Oh, I do too. And I'm telling you right now, I will be totally shocked if she doesn't win this.
Okay.
And she's wrestling a world-class athlete in the finals, but she's just looked phenomenal in this tournament and has not given up a point. And if you look at what Japan has done in this tournament, I think she won her semis by 2, 6-4?
3-2. Let me double check.
3-2, 1. Okay.
So she won 10-0 in the qualifiers, 3-0 in the round of 16, was losing 8-5 in the first period and got a pin in the quarters, and won 5-4, in the semis.
Okay.
So clearly Mensa Stock's been more dominant. But, sometimes you watch these brackets. So, like, for example, like if you tech fall me in the finals, I might have been the second best person, but I might not have been. I might have just got on the good side of the bracket. You just don't know. And as much as UWW has, okay, we're not doing blind draw. We're going to seed it. We're not going to seed it to 2. We're not going to seed it to 4. We're going to seed it to 8. We're going to do balanced brackets. We're going to do a lot of these things. It's some of these athletes, men, we'll talk about some of these women are not wrestling in all the point accumulation tournaments. They're just coming in and wrestling because they're like, I don't care. I am the bad draw, so that can go a couple of different ways.
Sure.
Okay. I think the other story of the tournament from the United States point of view is Allure here at 72. Like, she's 18 years old. She goes 10-0 over Ukraine in the qualifying round, 4-0, then pins in the round of 16, beats the Japanese U23 world champ in the semis, 3-2, guts it out, really, really good match, and has the Kazakhstan in the finals. But this is, we're much more familiar with men's wrestling because of the college and the storylines. We know how old these guys all are. Like, hey, will Dake do another cycle? Will Taylor do another cycle? And then like Burroughs probably isn't going to do another cycle because we know them. And some of the young ladies, just because we don't know their backgrounds, we don't know how long they're going to wrestle. In some ways they have less tread off the tires because they didn't wrestle gigantically long college seasons and there was less kids matches. So they weren't wrestling like 120 matches and going to Tulsa 6 times in a year, but we just don't know the storylines. But she's unbelievable, man. Like, she's so good. And Doug Paulson talked yesterday. We talked about how years ago when women's wrestling first started, frankly, some of it wasn't very good, but that's fair. They hadn't been wrestling. The best coaches weren't helping them. Now we got world-class coaches and world-class athletes and world-class training situations. And she clearly deserves the credit, but she's a product of that situation. And it's the development of somebody that young. She's also super composed, man. She's super fun to watch. She's cool hand Luke out there.
Yeah, it's impressive. We talked about Dom being the talk of the tournament. This young lady, I mean, look, obviously they're both in the same situation, but she just beat Japan. I mean, beating Japan is a big deal, David. I mean,
Yeah.
that can take you over the top. So, but then again, we're getting into more of our upper weights in the women's division where we're typically better than, Japan. So, you have to look at Japan didn't even have somebody at Dom's weight. She got hurt late and they didn't bring her back up. So let's give credit where credit's due. But this young lady at her age to be wrestling for a world title.
Yeah. Stupid good. So the other thing, when I say the story is Dom, that's obviously just my opinion. But Allure would probably be 1A, 1B. I don't know who'd be higher. She just hasn't wrestled her final match yet. And then she's going to get caught up in the wash of all the men. So it's, hopefully she'll get her shine, get her flowers, as the kids are saying these days. And we'll do our part to make sure that happens. Guilford goes 0-1. She loses to Kagami from Japan, who then wins, but then loses to Adar from Turkey and is knocked out. So let's go to the men's freestyle. Gilman's the 1 seed. Okay. Cruz is on his side of the bracket. Sarlac's on his side of the bracket. But, probably Kumar is probably the best person left at this weight. I mean, obviously there's a ton of hammers in here, but they got separated. So this will be interesting to watch. Seth Gross, he's in the draw. He's got Ukraine in the qualifying round, then Grigorev from Poland, then either Romania, Puerto Rico, or Turkey. And then coming out of the top side would be the Armenians, the number 1 seed. So, but Ray Higuchi is up there as well, who's got a ton of international experience. And, this is where like a guy like Mark would be absolutely awesome, or GT rather, would be absolutely awesome to have on, but not a terrible draw. I think he probably needs to make the semis though, to make sure he gets pulled through, because I don't anticipate whoever comes out of his quarter bracket being the favorite in the semifinal. Does that make sense the way I'm saying that?
Yep.
Okay. 65, Yanni D. So he's got Armenia, then the winner of Germany and Bulgaria, and then in all likelihood, Bajrang in the quarters. Now, he's beaten Bajrang like at a Beat the Streets New York event. So, I mean, he does have experience there. Sebastian Rivera is the 3 seed. So, I mean, no disrespect, but I think if Yanni were to wrestle him in the semis, that's about as a good of a draw as, he could hope for. Muskayev from Hungary is on the top. Haji Aliyev's on the top. Rachmanov's on the top. Yamaguchi's on the top. McNeil, who goes to North Carolina, just as a sidebar, like if you're following college wrestlers, he's representing Canada. He's on the top. So, I mean, Dubov and Yanni in the second round would be tough. Oh, and then the Cuban is down at the bottom. He's going to wrestle Bajrang, but, Yanni's got to make it to the quarterfinals. He's got to win his first 2 and then hopefully beat the winner of Cuba, India. And then if not, hopefully that guy pulls him through.
I'm pretty sure, David, the Yanni's first match is who he lost to last year in the Worlds.
Well, he's going to have to figure out a way to win that match, because that guy's not going to be favored to win the final, make the final. So,
correct.
And I guess people should if you're watching for the first time, international wrestling is not double elimination. You have to lose to the finalists to get pulled back in. So just so people understand that. Okay, so here's brackets that are being wrestled. Zane was unseeded, beat the German in 4 minutes, 10-0.
Zane was the 6th seed.
6th seed, sorry. He pinned the Swiss 4-0 in the round of 16, and then beat the Andresen, the Armenian 5-0, and then into the semis. So that's where they stop. He's actually wrestling today. He might actually be wrestling right now while we're recording, but he's guaranteed top 6. I mean, even if you lose and you lose, you're 5th. hope if he places, if he has to win one match, either win the semi or win the repechage to be third or second. He obviously can still win the tournament, and we hope he does. But he would be another guy that would be, punch his spot in the Final X the next year, and then he'd have to make a decision. I mean, I guess he's going to go down. I doubt he's going up to 74. I don't see any way he could do that. And 65 is probably a ways down. But really, has wrestled well so far. His intensity and pace has been a big difference maker, right?
Yep. I think him going up a weight has really helped him. It frees him up to do some things that, he does not spend all the time trying to make the weight. So he's just actually focusing on his wrestling, which is hard for people that cut a lot of weight, David. It really is, because that's a hard part of the sport. I mean, that's the part everybody hates, and you just dread doing it, and it gets into your head. So,
yeah, he was a 149 pounder in college, and 65 is 143, 70 is 154, just so people can kind of get that. And the last 6 pounds, as most of us know, are the hardest. So,
yep.
74, Dake is the 1 seed. So, I mean, I guess we could talk a little. The Iranians on his side, Chamizo's on the other side, and Takatani's on the other side, Hasanov's on the other side. Just some of the names that people might be familiar with. So, he's the number 1 seed for a reason, but you still got to go wrestle. 79, Jordan Burroughs was the 1 seed. He went 12-1 in 2 minutes, went 12-1 in 50 seconds, went 10-0 in 3 minutes. So there's another guy, Mark, who, has publicly talked about making weight has gotten a little more difficult as he's gotten older. And this 79 feels like, he's still yoked out of his mind, but not having to just look at the scale every single time. He goes from 163 to basically 174, give or take 173.8. So, a big jump there for him, like 11.2 pounds is a big cushion to kind of just be able, like you said, not watch the scale so much, right?
Yep.
Looks like he's on a collision course with the Iranian, and this would be historical for him, 7th world and Olympic title. So Olympic weight, non-Olympic weight, it's a huge deal that we're watching here. So 86, Yazdani Charati goes 10-0, goes 11-0, is in the semis. David Taylor was the 2. I think probably the biggest surprise in this bracket. So if you look at Taylor, he went 10-0, 11-0, and now he's in the semis. But I really thought Miles Amin would make the semis when I saw the draw. Plus, he was the 3 seed, so I knew that's how it was going to be. But he lost 9-1 in the quarters. I think Taylor's going to win, not because I'm American, just because I think he's better, and that'll knock Amin out. But it'll actually put Ethan Ramos from Puerto Rico, who wrestled here in the United States, in the top. Like, he'll have to wrestle, somebody behind him. But if he can win that match, he would be wrestling the Kazakhstani to take 3rd, and the worst he would take is 5th. So
yep.
the Amin situation is interesting to watch. 92, this is Jaden. Gazimpour's on the top. Batiev's on the top. Jaden. Where is Jaden in the bracket? There is. He's the 3 seed. So he's at the top of the bottom. So he'll get South Africa or China first round, then probably get Rubiev the next round, and then most likely, if seeds hold, Azerbaijan in the semis. So Snyder, I think Snyder's a huge favorite to win here. The Russians not being here is a huge impact on all the weight classes, but probably no more here than watching, this is the weight class that, when the first year when Snyder won to win the world title was just absolutely gigantic for the United States. So any thoughts here on Jaden or Snyder?
Jaden sits in a good spot. Hopefully he's focused and ready to wrestle, because he seems to once in a while lose focus and lose matches that you just scratch your head over. Schneider didn't get the greatest of draws, but I think if we had anybody on our freestyle team that had to run the gauntlet to win it, I'm not so sure you wouldn't pick Kyle to be the guy that you'd want to have to do that, because his mind frame is he's just so tough, and he's there to wrestle the best that's there. So, and obviously with Russia not being there, that is the best person in the world right now at his weight. He knows that. So I think he wants to go make a statement, and I think he will, David.
Yeah, he's got Magomedov on his side and Mohammedian on his side.
Yep.
And so, yeah, definitely. Somebody did a tweet. I should have saved it, but they're talking about how many medals Snyder has won. I think he's 24, 25 years old, and compared it to where, like, how many medals Dake and Taylor had won at that age, or Dake and Taylor have won now combined. And it's less. It's unbelievable how good Snyder is. And I think what people forget is, like, he had to beat Jake Varner out to make the team, and Varner was the defending Olympic champion.
Yeah.
Like, that was Varner won the Olympics in 2012. Snyder made, like, I think beat him for the first time in 15, then made and started, he's medaled every year since 15 at the Worlds or Olympics. So, I mean, it's crazy.
I guess I think that's most impressive about Kyle, obviously, is that the first time I really watched him wrestle, David, to find out how good he was going to be, was beat the streets of New York when he wrestled the Russian, who was a 4-time world champion, Olympic champion. I mean, he was the guy. And Schneider lost to him. I'm not going to go back on that. But Schneider took him down twice and was all over this guy for, the 6 minutes. And you could tell he was going to be something special. And obviously he's turned out to be something special. But if you go back on looking at his records, you got to remember Dake and Taylor were in JB's weight. And JB.
Or Jaden's weight.
Or Jaden. I mean, that at that time back then, though, I mean, early on, they were both at JB's weight, I think, weren't they?
Yeah, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying Snyder had to beat Varner.
But Varner is not Jordan Burroughs. Jordan Burroughs.
Granted, nobody's Jordan Burroughs. But I'm just saying, I think like a lot of us kind of put those guys all on the same tier, and they're not. I mean, Snyder's medaled in 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
Yep.
He's going to medal this year. He's going to have 8 world medals. I don't know the whole count. What?
I'm pretty sure he's going to medal this year.
Yeah, I'm saying she's going to have 8. If he stopped right now, if he just decided to go walk the earth like Kane from Kung Fu, he's like one of the greatest wrestlers of all time in our country. He's like 25 years old.
Yep.
I don't know how much longer he's going to do this, because it's really a matter of how long he wants to do this. Somebody, I think it was Jaggers, told me that when he was at Ohio State, it was almost scary watching him practice because he would get himself so tired, like you thought he was going to hyperventilate and pass out. Like, you don't see a lot of big guys that train like that. So that's super impressive.
Yeah.
So last weight for men's here, Zilmer. So I had Zilmer on a couple weeks ago. He's a super likable guy. 15-4 in the prelims, wins 3-2, which is a super important match. Mark, you pointed out off the air, that's a rematch, and he flipped the decision there, correct?
Yes.
So he gets to the finals, he loses to Gino, and so Petrashvili's in the semis, but Zaire and Agul are on the other side.
Yep.
So assuming Petrashvili can win, then the way this would work, Petrashvili beat Dinesh, so Zilmer would wrestle him. Let me see if there's a prelim. There wasn't. So Zilmer would wrestle Dinesh, and then he would wrestle, I'm going to butcher these names, Munkter for third. And again, then if he does that, he's sitting in Final X.
Yep.
So that'd be fascinating if Gable came back, because they're at the same club. So
I wonder how that would go.
Yeah, I think we all have our predictions, but like again, I think it's very interesting. America's on the freestyle side. If you did a combined freestyle score, America would win this year, like women's and men's, because Japan's not going to place that high in men's. And we saw the difference in points. Like the women are going to beat every other team by 100 points. So, combined, we'll be the best freestyle country in the world. GT 3 months ago said that America was going to win men's freestyle. So it's going to be super interesting to see. We obviously hope he was right, for a bunch of reasons. So I think that's about it for this week, man. Like next week, I'll be honest, the last couple weeks have been a little slow, probably the slowest we've ever had, Mark, since we started doing the pods together. And next week, we'll obviously have a ton to talk about the Worlds. I'll talk about Border Brawl. And then it's late September, beginning of October. The next 5-6 podcasts are talking about 2 weights and team race and making picks. Yep. So then we hit college season. So we'll be running and ripping after, we're pretty much going forward. And that's kind of how you and me started, was talking about college rankings. It's fun to have evolved in all this stuff. And we do our best to do a good job and be informative. By the way, the USA Wrestling Media Guide is out there online. It is unbelievable. They did it. Obviously, we're halfway through the tournament, but if you want to be the smartest person at your table, go download that thing. It's absolutely freaking awesome. So shout out to Gary and Taylor. They did an unbelievable job putting that together. So anything else before we sign off?
No, I mean, I know Yazzie, is that who it is? At David Taylor's weight. He has a brother wrestling in this also.
Yeah, it's Donnie Chirati. Yeah, yes, Donnie Chirati.
Yeah, what weight is he at?
The younger one?
Yes.
I think 65 or 70.
Okay, he has to wrestle. Now they haven't wrestled yet, obviously. But from what I've heard, he's got to wrestle a guy from Israel first round. And Iran has never put out a wrestler against somebody from Israel because of their cultures and, things that they believe in their countries, that they will not step on the mat with somebody from Israel. That can make a huge difference in this tournament for team standings if he does not step on the mat. I just wanted to get that out there.
Well, I'm trying to pull him up. 70. Okay, so if we go back to brackets, well, they already wrestled. That already happened.
Oh, it did happen.
Yeah, Fine Silver got a forfeit.
Okay.
And then Fine Silver got 10-0'd. So, yeah, he didn't even get to wrestle. So they took a 0 at that weight.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So if you go to team race right now, but, again, they don't assign these points. So it's kind of a zoo right now trying to figure everything out. So.
Sure. I just thought that was when I heard that story, I thought, let the kids are going there to be world champions. Let them wrestle. Quit the policy, political, religious, just let them wrestle. That's why you're sending them there.
Yeah. So, I think that stuff's above my pay grade, but in general, I agree with you. Absolutely. Obviously. So anyway, for GT, who's doing Serbia things, for Mark, who's doing Iowa things, I'm David doing St. Louis things. Thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll see y'all next week.